All right, well, I just mentioned, clients and partners who had, helping us shape our solutions, and we just previewed one of them. So with that, I'd like to bring up one of those partners and clients, Alejandra Villagra, who is the Global Head of Digital Solutions and Citi Velocity. Can you please join us on stage?
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hey, Ali.
Hey. Hi. Nice to see you all in person.
All right, so we just did the demo.
Impressive, by the way. Wow.
Thank you
Very
for the back pat there.
Yeah.
And, you and I and the team at Symphony have talked a lot about network creation. Brad mentioned it in his opening remarks. And the importance in reducing friction, reducing barriers to entry, and just having folks with access to their network. How do you think about this as it relates to Velocity, as it relates to Symphony, and where do you think the market's heading?
Yeah, so, I think when it comes to networks, we really, all we have to do is look to our personal lives for direction. I mean, consumer tech is absolutely leading the way here, and I gotta say, networks and platforms rule these days. And when you're putting that into context, and your clients, and in fact many of your clients I think are gathered digitally today, and when your clients are meeting and interacting digitally on a platform, and you are servicing and executing digitally, that network, that client network, raises to the level of almost holy in my mind. And anything that creates a barrier to entry for network building is something that we need to collectively think really creatively about how to reduce frictions on. And it's actually very early days Symphony. I won't say exactly how early days because I'll be dating myself, but very early days Symphony, Citi actually got behind the idea of eliminating that connection request. And I think that that's something that we need to kind of sort of revive.
Dust off the playbook?
Yeah, let's dust this one off. And so for any of you in the audience who are in the buy side, on the buy side, or for those of you who are online and on the buy side, Citi felt like, listen, we want our people to connect to your people, and we don't want to make it hard. We don't want it to be a free-for-all. I'm not talking about bots pinging you left, right, and center, and But I think that we do want our staff to connect with one another. That's the whole purpose here. So.
So would you say that if a client wanted to say message their salesperson or their prime brokerage rep, they should be able to do that?
Yeah, they should be able to do that without any friction and without any barrier to entry. It feels pretty obvious, but that's an idea that we are definitely dusting off and looking for partners for anyone who might be interested. So, to get back to your original question, I think that we are squarely moving into a world where networks and platforms rule, and those who have the network will win.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. And as everything you've heard, we're so focused on networks and connectivity.
So on that network building, my turn to give you some props. Last I read, Citi Velocity has 100,000 institutional clients in over 150 countries around the world. Brad had mentioned partnerships and integrations. This is going to be a theme that we hear a lot today. How does Symphony's refocus on interoperability and partnerships fit into your digital strategy and growth plans at Velocity?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the shout out. Very proud of the size of that network. Obviously, we're putting our money where our mouth is when it comes to network building. That was a decade of blood, sweat, and tears the team put into building the network. And it's actually 157 countries. I think I had to ask my crew at one point, are there even 157 countries in the world?
We'll send around a list of the countries.
Yeah, and they were like, yes, Ali, yes, indeed there are. So that data is correct, 157 countries. No, but in all seriousness, to me, it's not a question of does interoperability fit into your strategy. It's like, if you're not interoperable, you're dead upon arrival. So I'm thinking, you guys just did a phenomenal demo showing the power of interoperability, but getting back again to kind of the bar that has been set by consumer tech in our lives. So I've got some multi-factor authentication challenge to get into some application, and I get an SMS message on my phone, and it's automatically copied and pasted, and I go to my app, and it's like, oh, would you like to put your authentication code in? And I'm like, why, yes, I would. Thank you, phone. And if you care about your user, like if you care about your users and you care about your network, you are going to be interoperable. So I don't really think it's a question whether it's for Velocity or Symphony. If it's a question of does it fit into your digital strategy, it's like this is existential. Like it must fit into your digital strategy, because if your network is sacred to you, then you got to embed these kinds of services.
Yeah, like in my personal life, I refuse to write my address anywhere. Like, you know who I am.
Why should
why is there not a pop-up here telling you what my email is? You just sent me an email. So
we all do business
you.
where it's the easiest to do it, and that's just the nature of it. Wherever we can remove friction, we absolutely need to do that. Now, Citi has, with Symphony and elsewhere throughout the market, you've always been at the forefront of interoperability, of apps, of bots, of openness. Why has this been such a priority for Citi, and how do you see yourselves fitting into the broader industry path in this space going forward?
Yeah, so I'm going to quote my husband on this one. He likes to say, don't stand in the way of progress, and that's kind of like the G-rated version. It's more like don't stand in the way of progress, or it will expletive run you over. And I think that's sort of at the core of my beliefs. And I think, so let's talk about a couple of things. I think open platforms, interoperability we've touched on, but also automations and bots. And, I've been a believer of open platforms, which, by the way, is something I think that Symphony is leading the way on, and I think one of your single biggest differentiators. So I just really want to emphasize that. But I sort of got familiar in a very lived way with open platforms in the very early days of Velocity. So when we first started building the product, probably because I'm a bit of a type A control freak, we were pretty closed. And it felt like a little bit easier to manage and something I could wrap my arms around. But very quickly, we realized we had no scale and our time to market sucked. So happily, quickly, under the guidance of my brilliant tech partners, we switched from sort of a closed system to a much more open system. And when we did that, our time to market and our scale just absolutely exploded. And suddenly, and not just time to market and scale, but suddenly we had people working on Velocity that I didn't even know existed. So just the sheer number of people who are involved and driving innovation for us exploded. So kudos to you guys for the the bold and brave step of becoming more open. And this is something that, after that experience with Velocity, I've come to embrace in my role with the Finos organization that I think you'll hear a little bit more about later. But this is definitely a key differentiator for you. So interoperability, I think we touched upon. It's existential. If you don't do it, you're dead upon arrival. So that one I think is clear. But let's talk a little bit about bots as well, because this is another one that's near and dear to my heart, and I'll borrow from my husband again. So we recently got a new car, which was awesome considering the supply chain issues. But we did manage, after a long wait, to get one. And it has adaptive cruise control. Have any of you guys driven a car with adaptive cruise control? Hands. Okay, right. So one drive later, my husband is like, that's it. Never driving another car without adaptive cruise control again. I am done. Like, this is better. And it was just one of those things. And he's a good driver, by the way. But, he's just like, the car saw things that he didn't see. It perceived things that he didn't perceive. And this was just a really simple, powerful example to me that machines do certain things better. Like, we don't have to argue about it. And I think, it's a little bit of how I think about bots in our industry. there are things that can and should be automated, and Symphony has created an ecosystem where it is possible to bring that to life, and that is transformational. I believe from the bottom of my heart that people need to do what people are good at. Sort of Brad mentioned it a bit in his keynote. You know, let us build relationships. Allow us to think creatively. And anything that a bot can do, let it take over.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think, for us, taking your car analogy one level further, we're not inventing the wheel here, but I think for us, we're taking those wheels and we're going on a new road down financial services and we're powering them just to go that much stronger over this terrain. And I think I'm excited for the journey. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's one of these things where it's like, as soon as you know that the technology exists and it's there, you need to have the option to have it. And I think for so many of, our clients and colleagues, there's just so many portions of the day where you're just like, I can't believe I'm doing the job of a machine, right? Like this, because if you're a salesperson, like you should be deal making, right? Like if you're a research analyst, you should be analyzing, and not jumping around platforms and again. Churning.
Big tech has handed us the roadmap. We just have to follow it.
Yes. The world has solved this problem.
Yes.
We just got to adopt.
Yep.
100%. And you will be hearing at the end of today, there'll be a panel about interoperability featuring Dietmar Fauser, our CIO, who just recently joined the board of Finos, along with many other market participants who are very passionate about this space. So if interop is something you're excited about, and you'll hear a lot more about it throughout the day, something to look forward for everybody. But with that,
Thank you, Ali.
thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.